Hey everybody, welcome to No Plan, No Problem, the weekly D&D advice podcast where two dungeon masters go on an epic adventure trying to find 3 actionable tips for you to use in your next game. I'm your dungeon master, Anto.
And I forgot to think of a joke for this bit. Matthew Perkins.
You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
And all my stuff is over at matthewperkins.net. So today we're going to be talking about Session 0. Not Session 1. Hey, Session 1 would be where you guys go kill some goblins. Session 0, it's all that prep work. All that stuff you've got to do before you play your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Now, it's got a few purposes, Session 0. Some people use it as a way to kind of flag the kind of things that are going to be in their campaign. They'll use it as an opportunity to say, this is what our story's about, this is our world, this is our setting, let's all make characters together. But recently, and when I say recently, I mean like in the last decade, this kind of has been an opportunity for people to use it as a safety tool and for people to go like, oh, hey, can we not, I'm arachnophobic, can we please not have spiders in this campaign, as an example? And also to kind of like just set the tone and the expectations. If you imagine your Dungeons & Dragons game having a social contract about the way that you all behave at the table, then the Session 0 is where you guys write that contract together and you all sign it metaphorically, and then we get on with the rest of the podcast. Now, Anto,
yes,
who is the adventurer that's going to help us with our first tip about Session 0?
So the first adventurer is Fungal Fan. Over on the DM Academy subreddit, and they're saying, do I need a Session 0? Pretty soon I'll be starting a new campaign, but I've played with this group for several years. In your opinion, do I need to have a Session 0? They've already got a pretty good understanding of the expectations around the table. If you think I should have one, what would you talk about?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like, just for, it's the thing that you do. Like, think about it this way, in the order of operations of a campaign, if you were gonna, I'm gonna write my assignment, what's the first thing that you do when you write your assignment? You open up Microsoft Word. This is like you setting up the template for your experience with these people. And in different campaigns, people might have different expectations. And over time, people's expectations might change, even if you are familiar with them. It might surprise you the feelings that people secretly have and the hang-ups that they have about certain topics. And it might even surprise themselves. If you give people the opportunity to go, oh, how do you feel about this? They might even think about it, be like, you know, actually, I really don't like that. It makes me feel really personally uncomfortable. And I don't enjoy violence against children being in my games or something like that. So yes?
Yeah, I definitely think that everyone benefits from having a Session 0, and it's going to depend. Different people are going to get different things out of it, I think. In this example where the person is saying, oh, we've played together for a long time, we kind of understand our table's social contract. Even if that is the case, it's always a good idea to kind of reinforce that contract and be like, okay, the last time we did this, here is how everyone was feeling. Is everyone still feeling that way? Has anything changed? But from a more practical gameplay side of things, I think Session 0 is a really good way to get your players to engage more with their characters and to think more deeply about their characters and how they can kind of connect to the world.
Yeah, man. That's a really good idea, especially because usually a session, and I'm thinking pre-COVID here, but usually a Session 0, it's going to happen in person and you're all around the table together, like a session. Now, normally, like before people would do this kind of thing, I can imagine people making their characters over in a vacuum, you know, and just emailing their story, the backstory through to the DM. But one thing that gets me excited when I'm starting a new campaign or making a new character is seeing how other people are getting into it and be able to bounce off them in real time. Like, it's not like, I don't want to say peer pressure, but it's like encouraging that we can all feed off each other's excitement.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what about this? What about this? What about this? And that brainstorming energy, oh, dude, Session 0 is where it's at.
Even when I think back to when I very first started playing tabletop games, even before any of us knew what the concept of a Session 0 was, we were still doing Session 0s. We would all, when someone would be like, we should play D&D, and everyone would be like, yeah, we'd all sit around the table, and the first like 5 hours would just be sitting around talking about character ideas and just writing out the character sheets from the books around the table together and talking about that. And that gets a lot of the kind of things that you cover in a session 0 without even realizing that you're doing it, because you're exchanging ideas on your characters. You have ideas of what kind of tone you're going to be setting by the kind of characters that you're going to be making. And I think it's just always useful to some degree to have session 0.
But I wonder if, so I completely agree with you. Yes to all of that. I wonder if this person is specifically thinking of session 0 as only the safety tools parts. Like in this question asker's mind, we had a funny name that I can't remember and won't try to say. Do they think it's just like a session 0 is just where you go, oh, who doesn't like spiders? You know? Are we using X cards in our game? What safety tools do we have? And in which case, even if it was only that, still do it.
It's still worth doing. I do think that seems to be the case. They seem to think that the session 0 is just those setting the expectations and covering safety tools and kind of what people are comfortable with. But like I said, there's so much in terms of the juice of the game that you can get out of the session 0 that I don't think as a dungeon master I would ever not run a session 0, just to watch the players sit down and talk about the characters and talk about the game with each other with a notepad and be like, right, okay, so that character mentioned that they have this idea. I'm going to incorporate that at some point in the future.
Is our tip just to run a session 0? Is that it?
I mean, yes, I think, but I think that for people that run session 0s and kind of, I'm hesitant to say use them properly like there is a right way to do it, but I think the people that already run session 0s understand how useful they can be. And if you've never done a session 0 before, I don't think you quite comprehend how useful they can be in multiple areas. Because yes, a player can say, okay, I'm not comfortable with this kind of topic, and it means that you can be a good person and not subject them to that kind of topic. But you can also mine so much drama for the future of your game by just listening to the players talk to each other about their characters, and they'll mention little snippets of their background, and one of them might say, oh, you know, maybe you and I could be related, and someone will mention, oh, here's something about one of our parents, and you can note it down and be like, right, okay, at some point this needs to come up again.
And I suppose it's also your opportunity to like course correct your players, and to be able to influence that when they say, oh, what if we had a father who was a crime lord, and you go, I've got a crime lord that I wanted to use in this campaign. I could just tie it in there. And when you do that kind of stuff, the players will think, oh my God, he made this especially for us. And you were going to do it anyway.
Exactly. So I think that the tip is just run a session 0, because if you're not already doing them, then you're missing out on so much drama and juice potential.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. You sold me on that tip. Good job. We did such a good job. We have a segment in the middle of this whole podcast. This is the podcast. You're listening to a podcast right now, and in the middle of it, we do something called roll for friendship. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So if you want to be our friend, the best way to do it is engage with our content. Leave comments, leave likes, talk to us on social media. Let us know what you think about the topics that we're talking about. Leave comments saying if there's anything that we've missed or what you thought about the points that we've raised and all of that good stuff. And if you want to be our extra friend, then giving us a subscribe or a follow or anything on whichever platform you're listening to or watching this on across the internet really helps us out. Feeds the algorithm, gets us in front of new people. And then if you want to be an extra special friend, we have a Patreon where we post pre-shows where we get warmed up for these things. We post extra playable content and ideas and PDFs and all that kind of good stuff. And you can head over there and help keep the lights on and keep food in our bellies.
Dude, social media is so difficult. Like when we started this podcast, we both ran out and made social media accounts for just like everything.
Yeah.
And I reckon we've used half of them.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like an Easter egg hunt. Just go out there and find it.
See
Like,
which
where
ones
are
you
we?
can find. Yeah.
Just give it a bit of a type in and go like, I wonder if they're on TikTok. And we are, and it's dead.
See, even I'd forgotten we were on TikTok.
Yeah, that's because it was my job to keep it alive. I didn't feed it. I didn't change the water, and it's gone. Rest in peace. F in the chat. But hey, one of my favorite social media platforms that you could touch base with us on is Discord. We have a link to Discord in our YouTube comment description area. And it's really nice. That's the place where we post the most and chat the most.
Yeah.
If you want to actually hang out with us, hey, do that. Or leave a YouTube comment. Anyway, that seemed like a pretty successful roll for friendship.
So roll for friendship over, Matt. What is happening now?
Okay, I'm hesitant about this one. This is a segment that doesn't get a lot of playtime because it's so hard to find stuff. The point where now we're going to tell a horror story. Ooh,
yeah.
From me.
Oh, yes.
My own horror story. A homegrown horror story. This is from my new series, Australian Horror Story. That was a bit of a Netflix joke, I guess.
Yep.
So this is about the time that I didn't run a session 0.
Okay.
This was my second campaign. We had just run The Lost Minds of Fandel, a fantastic campaign, but I did an awful job of it because I made every mistake that you can possibly make. One of the things that I didn't realize is that a lot of mistakes in that first campaign were because I didn't run a session 0. And that's going to be apparent in this first session, the only session of this second campaign. The first mistake I made when I didn't make a session 0 is I had some problematic behavior in the first campaign. Some sexual content made its way in, super awkward. I don't know how explicit this can get. The cleric summoned a spiritual weapon that was pretty...
Oh, no.
Phallic?
Terrible. No.
It was real bad. And I didn't know. I thought I could say like, hey, you're being really weird in my house right now.
Yeah.
We're in my living room. What are we doing? And I invited that player back for this campaign 2. That's mistake number 1.
Yeah.
We didn't have this campaign, this session 0. I had this whole scenario set up. I'd planned the whole campaign out in my head for some reason.
Yeah.
I'd drawn like a map of Australia that was obscured, so it didn't quite look like Australia. I was putting things everywhere and be like, it's going to blow their mind when they realize they're playing in our continent.
Yeah.
They're going to be so surprised. And like I was, I did this crazy flashback thing where it was like, okay, we start in combat in the first half of the session, then we'll flash back to like them getting the job and this kind of stuff, just so that they wouldn't derail me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I had that instinct because it was their instinct to try and derail me.
Yeah.
The first time I introduced them to a ferryman, like to get them across the river, and this is going to be a character that's going to help them out later. They like threatened him for like no reason and like burned down his cottage and chased him away. I'm like, okay, I didn't know what to do. Like in the moment, I went, well, here's what I'll do. I'll make him really powerful. They wouldn't expect him to have like this experimental crossbow in there that's like super tough. You know what that did? That just made them go, oh, we were right to kill that guy.
Yeah.
He was tough.
And now we get this sweet loot out of it, so we were justified.
But the most heartbreaking moment is because like they just acted with such hostility towards everything that I put in front of them, and that wasn't the tone that I wanted. And some of the other players, I could see it wasn't the tone that they wanted either. There was one particularly heartbreaking moment, really drew a line in the sand, where there was this old hermit who was living in a tent outside an abandoned mine, and I just put him there so they could ask him questions. And they went into his tent. They started talking to him, and he was being hospitable and offered them tea and stuff like that. And one of the players immediately saw, oh, I've got high intimidation. I'm going to grab him by the beard and drag him outside and start kicking him. And I'm a new dungeon master. So what I was thinking is like, well, if my players want to do something, like, let's do it. Let's play it out. But what I didn't realize was I should have just said at so many instances, like, hey, you're being bad.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy this. And one of the players even said to me after the game, oh man, that made me really uncomfortable when that happened. And not because that's one of that player's hang-ups, but just because it's not fun to be complicit in that inhospitable action.
It's
Not fun. Have
it's
you had
such a
anything like that happen to you?
I've been a player in games where there haven't been session zeros. I think all the games
Yeah.
I've ever played in haven't had session zeros actually.
Hmm.
And I have had a similar situation where, for no reason, another player has gone just way overboard, violent with someone that they didn't
Yeah.
need to, and I just stopped playing. After that, we finished that session, and I said to the dungeon master, I was like, I'm just not interested in playing this game anymore. Like that
Mm.
instance completely ruined this for me, and I didn't play in that game anymore, and I haven't even played that system since. Like it was so uncomfortable. I think it tarnished the entire game system as well.
Mm.
And I do think that is something that would have been solved in a session zero, because I think that this kind of prevalence for players to go needlessly violent and to escalate things much quicker than deserves to be escalated is super common, regardless of kind of experience level. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of that comes down from not having a session zero, or not articulating what you as a dungeon master are comfortable with.
Yeah. And like, there are gameplay tools and little homebrew rule sets to get around that particular problem of, look, one player has gone rogue and turned every social situation into a hostile situation.
Yeah.
Because just as is, Dungeons and Dragons gives that authority to every single player to immediately turn any situation hostile. It's their big red button, and they slam. They like, bing, bing, bing. Oh, I win. But there are tools to deal with that specific thing. I read something. I don't know where I read this. Maybe it's a game system that I'm robbing right now. But they said, if we're in a non-combat situation and you want to escalate it, you have to do it in stages. So let's say that there's a conversation going on and you want to start combat, then you have to, in 3 stages, describe your character getting more aggravated.
Yeah.
And that gives all the other players a chance to like wrap up their intentions with the conversation, because the barbarian's going, okay, I start cracking my knuckles. Okay, and then the next stage might be I'm twisting the grip of my axe.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
and it gives people a chance.
that kind of thing is useful. A way to handle that is to just make it so that the players do have to, like, if they want to act violently, make them roll initiative. But like, if someone's like, right, I want to grab this guy and force him outside, I'm like, right, okay, you're putting hands on him, it's initiative. You want beyond just intimidation. Now you are physically assaulting this NPC. If you want to do that, you roll initiative. If he rolls higher than you, he is going to attack you first, because you are clearly moving in a threatening manner, and you're not just going to get a free action against these people.
Actually, do you know what? I think you just talked me out of it. I think you just talked me out of my idea, because what I realized that we're trying to do is get in-game mechanics to solve an out-of-game problem. You know, and like that's my instinct to do that, but I can't think of any other instance where you would use a rule set to deal with a behavioral problem. Maybe even the thing that I suggested isn't even very good. Maybe I shouldn't use it. Oh man, so much doubt.
I think
So much doubt.
that part of it comes from, what do you want as a dungeon master? Because at the end of the day, you are a player at the table, and you deserve to play the kind of game that you get fun out of just as much as the players do. So if them acting needlessly hostile or doing these things makes you uncomfortable, makes you not enjoy the game, then you've every right to say to the players, look, I am a player at this table too. I don't enjoy this. Can we please do something different? Can you not murder everyone I put in front of you because I spend time working on these people? And for me, the juice isn't you just slaughtering your way across this continent. I want you to engage with the narrative, or whatever it is that you as a dungeon master want. I don't want you to just leave a trail of bodies in your wake.
Yeah, I think that is definitely good advice that wouldn't work on the worst of players. And I think that says something about those worst of players, in that, like, I shouldn't have invited some of those players to my game. I knew their mettle, I knew their character, and I I brought them along because it's like, oh, they're my friend.
Yeah, I
Doesn't mean they're
think
good at D&D.
the tip might be sometimes not playing D&D is better, because in those situations I do think that it is better to be like, right, okay, I'm not like, if that is the kind of game that you want to play, I'm not comfortable running that game for you.
Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to play the kind of games that you want. You're not going to find it at this table. So either you need to be making a character that fits with the intention of play for this table, or you're going to have to go and find it at the table. And it's always difficult to turn around to a player and be like, seriously, stop this. But it is one of the more useful tools as Dungeon Master to know when it's getting up to the line and how to express that, oh, now this needs to stop. And either what you are doing, what you're about to do, or what you've just done is unacceptable, and we need to deal with that. So if I've had instances in the past where a player's been particularly like aggressively murder hobo, and afterwards I've been like, that can't happen again, because that is not okay, and it will not be tolerated again. Like, it has happened now, and we will adjust and deal with the fallout from it in this instance, but it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Every time I've had to have a tough conversation with a player, I haven't done it, and I've just ended the campaign.
Yeah.
And like, because it's I tell you what, it's lofty and easy for me to say, just talk to your player and, like, you know, threaten to kick them out or kick them out. Dude, that's so hard. I wouldn't. Yeah. I say that I would do it, and I say that people should do it, but I just end campaigns. Be like, guys, not feeling this one. We're 2 sessions in. Peace out.
Yeah,
and then I just never play them again.
It's a difficult thing to do, because in a lot of these instances, the people that you're talking to are your friends. You know them in context outside of D&D, and you're saying to them, look, we might get on in other situations and do other things and enjoy doing things together, but man, you really suck. Like, you are making this real bad.
Oh, can we give an example? Do you want to break up with me I'll be the problem player.
Okay.
And do you want to break up with me? So I'm going to do a problematic behavior. Okay.
So you've done.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now. Don't interrupt me. Dungeon Master interrupting me all the time. Okay, so my rogue is gonna sneak up behind the shopkeeper, and I'm gonna stab him twice in the butt. And if he says anything, I'm going to make him sit down.
So your intention is to, in the middle of this shop, just start sneaking and crawl behind the counter.
Yeah. I'm gonna commando crawl on behind the counter. I'm gonna stab him twice in either side of the buttocks.
Okay, so he would immediately see you. You know, you're in this shop together. He can see you. Just commando crawl in. He will look at you and be like,
"Don't railroad me! Don't railroad me! I want to do it."
I mean, you're welcome to continue to try. He can absolutely see you commando crawling, but you can keep commando crawling if that's what you want to do.
I rolled a 20 to kill everyone in the room. You're not allowed to look at my dice. You can't see my dice.
That's not how it works.
I rolled another 20. What is it? Stop railroading me.
It's at that point, I would be like, okay, we need to stop. And then I'd be like, you and I need to have a conversation. And if we were in a physical location, I'd be like, we need to go to a different room. If we're in Discord...
He's going to fight me.
Yeah. We're going to take this outside. In Discord, I have a Discord server where I run my games through, and I've set it so that I can drag people between voice channels. So I would just drag you out of the conversation. I wouldn't ask you to move. I would just drag you into a different channel, and I'd be like, "Ooh, that needs to stop." Like, it's okay. And I would walk through the process of why the behavior is problematic. In this instance, it would be because it disrupts everybody else's fun. So everyone's there doing some shopping. No one had gone in there expecting a fight, and your actions directly impact the other people's fun and other people's experience of the game. Then I would kind of lay out, if you wanted to do something like rob the shopkeeper, that is something that is open to you, but your character is a thief and a rogue, they would know that probably dropping into
I'm
a command. A cleric. Oh my god, you were a cleric, weren't you? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know if I said I was a cleric. I just think it's funny.
I think you did. In that case, it would be a case of being like, well, if you want to steal from this shop for no reason, you absolutely have the autonomy to do that, but doing it in that way is never going to make, there is no reasonable expectation for a person to just commando roll into a shop in broad daylight and try and steal from someone. That is not the act of a sane or non-evil character to go through that progression of things, and this is not a game for evil characters. So that kind of character concept does not fit in this game. So either you need to adjust who your character is, or roll up a new character that fits in with the kind of game that we're playing. If we ever play an evil campaign in the future and you want to bring your wild card murder thieving cleric into that, then it will be clearly communicated that that is the kind of game that we would be playing. Otherwise, that character as they exist now just doesn't fit.
I put all my skills into stabbing people in the butt. It was really difficult for me to try and think of a problematic behavior to do in context of a G-rated podcast.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what's the worst thing someone could do on Disney Channel?
Yeah.
I suppose sometimes they hit each other in the butt, I guess.
But that is my approach, is to, as the Dungeon Master, just get comfortable with being like, no. Just hard nose, and get comfortable with just stopping all procedures to be like, no. Whatever this thing is, that is not okay. Here is why.
Yeah, I actually like that. Just say no. That's it.
Because I think so much of the kind of discourse is the yes and or the yes but for Dungeon Masters, that people do get into that mindset of, oh, I can't say no.
I really like that tip, and I really want to get into our final question, but I just want to ask this thing that I've just thought of. In the sense of saying no to everything, do you think it could be a fun game of D&D where there is no rolling, okay, and it's just like a comedy fun session, a big farce. There is no rolling, but the conceit is every skill check fails. It's like, we're going to do this thing, and the players know every skill check will fail.
I think,
and imagine the scenario is like, okay, we all work in a hospital.
Yeah, I think that if everyone was on board, that would sustain itself for a short period of time, and it would be hilarious in the short period of time. It doesn't have long-term sustainability, but
it's a one-shot.
I recently ran a game where there were skill rolls involved, and across 14 rolls, 12 of them were under 10 by this one player, and they were trying to sneak into somewhere in a heist, and they were just progressively being worse at their job and being like hiding behind a curtain and their feet obviously poking out, and just being like, this is fine, they can't see me, I can't see them, they can't see me.
I'm going to develop this idea. I'm going to think of this more. I really like that crap rogue as well. Hey, who's helping us out? Last tip of the podcast. Who's going to help us out?
So the adventurer helping us for our last tip is Auburn's X from the DM Academy over on Reddit again. And they said that they had a session 0 in the middle of a campaign they've been playing for about 3 years weekly. They started at level 1. They're about level 12 now. And one of the players brought up a grievance saying that they didn't like they didn't have the motivation to continue. So they stopped in the middle of the campaign to have a session 0 mid-campaign. And I thought we could just talk about that as a concept.
Well, I know, because I don't know if you realize this, Anto, I am a fan of your videos, and you have a video about mid-game session 0s. Yes. And I believe that your stance is you're for them.
I am for them. I'm very much for them.
Vote yes.
Vote yes on Prop 264.
Okay, what's your elevator pitch on a mid campaign session 0? Hit me. Elevator pitch. What you got?
So my elevator pitch for the mid campaign session 0 is that it is probably the best tool that you have to make sure that everyone is still having as much fun as they were at the start. So usually at the start of a campaign, everyone is really excited to get going, and there's high levels of energy, and typically that energy does sort of peter off when you've been playing for a year or 2 years or however long.
Mm.
You kind of fall into the routine of it, and it can be easy as the dungeon master to think, is everyone having fun? Because, or are we just going through the motions at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think it's good advice for literally anything. Like even when I used to work in a pub as a waiter,
Mm-hmm.
and they would do the thing where it's like, okay, the policy is you bring people their food,
Mm-hmm.
you leave them to eat a bit, and then maybe 10 minutes later you check in and be like, how is everything?
Yeah.
Because it gives them a chance to actually have their voice heard and say anything and fix any problems before they become problems, right? Um, Checking in with people is always good.
Yeah.
And if this is just a way of like formalizing that, then I think that's worthwhile. Because sometimes even after individual sessions, like when we had our TPK, I've only ever had one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I checked in with every player afterwards, like, hey, are you feeling okay about this? Like, just because it was like a really stressful, emotional kind of situation, it's like, did this awaken anything in you? Like, are you okay? Because it messed me up. I was like, ooh, I didn't like it. I don't know. It's important to check in.
I think that for me, the biggest benefit of it was that it kind of gave me the confidence in reaffirmed the confidence in myself that everyone is having fun, that the things that we have been doing, they've been enjoying, and that they do want to carry on the kind of roads that we've been going down. So the campaign I'm running at the minute is very sandboxy, and that is what the players said that they wanted. But I wanted my biggest thing when I was doing my check-in was to make sure that that is actually still what they want. Like, are you okay with the route that you've been going down? Here are the kind of things that you've said that you're interested in. Are you still interested in these things? Do you still want to pursue them, or are you bored? Are you still having fun? Like,
here's a question: how would you have felt if, when you had that session 0, the consensus that you all arrived at is like, we aren't feeling this as much, like, and maybe like, would you just change the campaign to be more like what they felt like, or would you consider being like, well, maybe we can just retire this for now?
So it would have been a case of, what aren't you having fun with? Like, do you enjoy the setting but not the kind of adventures that you're going on? In which case,
you never let me stab people in the butt. Trying to get in there.
In which case, it would be, right, okay, we can change the kind of adventures that you're going on. If you want to do more saving the world, we can do more saving the world. If you want to do more, movie heists, we can do more of that. If it was, no, we're just not vibing with the setting, then I always maintain that the players are never beholden to what I've put in front of them. And if they want to get on a boat and go to a different country, they're entirely within their rights to do that. Even if I have no idea where they're going, I will figure it out. I always want them to know that they're doing things because they want to do them and not because I'm forcing it on them. So if they said to me, we're really not feeling this setting, we want to go somewhere else, I'd be like, right, okay, here are some places in my world that I've got an idea of what they look like. Do any of these speak to you? If not, what kind of settings speak to you? And we'll figure it out and we'll do it.
Like you're a travel agent.
Yeah.
Have you considered going to, right? There is a attitude, when you were speaking to Sen, I just remembered something, like we've got to present a little bit of opposition to session 0s out there. Because for some people, some cruel people, they just don't like it. They take affront to it like it's an attack on the hobby.
Yep.
One criticism about session 0s and giving players an opportunity to voice the things that they're okay with and not okay with, like safety tools.
Yeah.
I've seen people give the advice of like, look, we had a session 0 and I told them what was going to be in the campaign and they all agreed. They all agreed to play in this campaign. And now they're angry because like it's a real gritty fantasy world and there's all this violence and really kind of awful stuff. But they knew it was going to be in the game. And now look, they're trying to take it off. Well, it's one thing, and I want to point this out. I want to be really clear here. It's one thing to say, this movie has scenes that depict this awful kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's another thing to watch the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have different reactions to those kind of things. And in the same sense, in the session 0, if the dungeon master says, I just want to let you guys know there's going to be this kind of, that kind of, those kind of things in this game, it's another thing to like role play it and meet it eye to eye. Like that's not comfortable. I learned some stuff playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like I learned in Curse of Strahd when our character players were carrying around a baby. I learned about myself. Like, ooh, I'm not okay with this baby being in danger, and like my character's actions having any bearing on that baby's well-being. Because suddenly I wasn't role playing my character Tommy the Stick, who was a great criminal. He was good. I wasn't being Tommy the Stick anymore. I was being Matt and being like, hey, I will make any decisions to not have that baby get hurt. And so I had to say to the DM, look, can we just give the baby plot armor? Like, I don't want it to even be a possibility. And I just want to guarantee that nothing's ever going to happen to the baby. Because I just would not enjoy that as a story. I didn't know that until I met it eye to eye.
I think that might be the tip. And it's an odd one in that players don't always necessarily know what they want. And there is a big difference between saying, yes, I want to play in a sandbox game, and then facing the reality of, okay, you as a player need to provide the content. You and your motivations will drive the plot forward. I'm not going to turn up and say, here is what you're doing today. You need to come to me as the dungeon master and say, here is what I want to do. And there's a big disconnect for a lot of people between the concept of a style of play and the reality of it, because a lot of the time they're basing their idea of the concept of something on kind of anecdotes from other people, and someone saying, oh, I played in this sandbox game and we got to do X and Y and it was amazing, and the players internalize that as, oh, sandbox games must be really cool, I want to play a sandbox game, don't railroad me, man. And then you take away the tracks and you're like, okay, what direction do you want to go in? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know.
I kind of want to see, you know, those, I think it's like an American kind of like libertarian slogan, like the don't tread on me or something like that. I want to see that, but it's like, don't railroad me.
I use railroad and sandbox as the example because I think it is probably one of the more common one. Like a lot of people do have this, oh, I don't want to be railroaded, and they realize that I don't think they realize that to not be railroaded in any sense, then all of the onus sits on the players and they have to work much harder to propel the drama. And so I think that the tip might be the players don't always know what they want. So make sure you're communicating, which is why you want a session 0. So saying, you say you want to play a sandbox, here is what that's going to look like. You are going to have to provide the motivations. I'm not going to come every week with something prepared. You're going to have to tell me what you want to do and that sort of thing.
Can I twist that a little bit? Because I think it might be more productive if it was something like, players don't always know what they want, so it's okay if they change their mind. You know what I mean? Because even if you could describe it any way you want, but the players are still going to misunderstand that somehow. Right? And I don't think that they would fully understand what a sandbox is until they've gotten in there and gotten muddy, right? And at that point, they would probably go, ooh, I don't really like this. I really enjoyed that tip. I've really enjoyed this episode as well. I forgot to set a timer. So we're about 8 minutes over. I'm so sorry. I've been trying to get this podcast under 30 minutes, but too much content.
Too much content.
Too much juice. Maybe we should have called it too much content. I've forgotten how we end the podcast. Oh, I asked you to recap the tips. Hey, Anto, what are the tips? What are they?
The tips for this. Tip 1 is to just do a session 0. It's going to benefit you in ways that you won't even fully appreciate if you haven't done one already. Tip number 2 is get comfortable saying no as the Dungeon Master, and when players bring forward concepts and ideas that you aren't comfortable with, get comfortable just being like, no, I'm not comfortable with that, here's why. And tip 3 is that the players don't always know what they want, so they will change their mind, and that is okay, and allow them to change their mind.
Yeah. Oh man, this has been a really valuable episode. Like I unpacked some stuff about this. And reliving that horror story, It's difficult. I'm the kind of person, I don't like to think about my past at all. I want to forget everything I've ever done. And for me to travel back in time 4 years to my second campaign, rough. How bad was your first campaign?
The first campaign I don't think was too bad. It was just one of those that petered out pretty soon because trying to get a bunch of people together on a schedule is a nightmare.
I thought that, I was wondering if I was going to catch you in a trap then, and you would have to say "You've caught me. I've never run Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know what it is.
I've been masquerading this whole time.
I'm unmasked." Oh man, hey, I've had a great time with this podcast.
Yeah.
My name is Matthew Perkins. You can find all my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
My name is Anto, and you can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
Now, the song that plays us out and in every week is called Altogether by a band called House Hats. And hey, everybody, consider becoming a patron. Get that pre-show. Join our Discord. Leave a YouTube comment. Find us out there on the mysterious social medias of the world. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye-bye.